Good afternoon and welcome to Ask the Security Guy. I am Holly Magnuson and this is episode number 70, recorded live on July the 7th, 2021. Welcome, Sean. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I can't believe it's July 7th, but the
I
year's
can't
half
believe
over.
it's number 70 that we've done this.
I know, 70 times. So I think we've got a good one for number 70. So, Sean, what are we going to talk about today? Actually, before you say that, let me do the housekeeping. If you are watching this live, you are welcome to use the chat and ask any questions you may have. If you are catching this after the fact and you have questions regarding what we've talked about here today or any questions related to cybersecurity, especially here at the university, you can email us at iso@apu.edu. That is always a good email address to do that. I do encourage you, subscribe to the channel. Click that little subscribe button, turn on the bell, and you'll get notified when we go live. So now that the housekeeping tips are done, Sean, what are we talking about today?
So we actually had a really interesting one hit us in June.
Yes, we did.
And by an interesting one, I mean we had a compromised account that hit one of our group role accounts. What that means is that it's a email account that is used by a department rather than an individual. And it has, a kind of a specialized setup. For those of you that use them, you understand how they work and how we set them up and the security controls we put around them. In this case, this is the account that got compromised, which means one of, potentially several people using the account got an email, clicked on a link, and then went to a bad site and put in their credentials and boom.
Yep.
So with this one, there's a few pieces that I wanted to show our listeners and viewers and just so they could see what it is that we're talking about. So let's take a look at the email, Holly.
Okay. Here we go.
All right. So let's dissect this a little bit. I know we've talked about phishing emails a lot, and we'll keep talking about them as long as they're a threat. So let's look at the subject. Your NetID closed. Any grammatical issues there? Yeah, seems a little, well, it's slightly off. Not bad, but slightly
not bad though. Not,
And then, so that's the hook. Your NetID closed. Okay, now you've created a sense of alarm and urgency. So now people are going to open the email, right? As of June 14th, Whoops.
Which honestly, I missed that the first time I looked at the email. That was not the trigger for me.
So, and that's a great point, Holly, because a lot of times our mind will automatically autocorrect far better than our smartphone does.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just gloss right over small errors like that unless you're looking for them. So we'll no longer offer the ability for you to sign in to your existing university ID. So interestingly enough, the subject line had part of our nomenclature correct with NetID.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the email body, it switched to university ID and it switched back to NetID.
Yep.
For further assistance, please visit tinyURL, shortened URL, to start using your NetID. Thank you for continuing to support the health and safety of the APU community. Sincerely, the IMT support desk. Now,
that's the got you I noticed.
Yeah.
The word desk. That's where it triggered.
For those of you that don't know, the support desk changed its name a little bit ago. So that signature is no longer valid. And since this is a public video, there's some information that we're not going to just relay here.
Yeah.
However, if you look at the from address, it's a valid and very important from address to APU. It's well known. Everybody recognizes it. And people know to look for it. And generally speaking, when they get a email from this address, almost everybody will pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Combine that with the subject line that builds urgency, and you've got something that's going to grab people's attention. Now, the two was also interesting. The two was to a specific group of our campus users.
Mm-hmm.
And that group tends to be younger. It was aimed at our student population only. So that's pretty interesting by itself. And it's important to remember that a lot of our staff are also students. So yeah, exactly. It's one of the many benefits of working for APU is either some form of tuition assistance, depending on your time with the university. So that's something that to bear in mind as well. So even though this was directed at our student body, it would have also gotten to the desk of a number of our staff members, be them faculty or adjuncts or staff employees. It could have landed a number of different areas. So with that, let's take a look at where that URL went. Huh. That looks exactly like our login page, Holly.
Yes, it does. I've always said it's not that hard to mimic our stuff or even mimic Google. Here's the evidence right here.
Oh, but look, we have a little red arrow. Oh, look, den-apu-
Yeah, let's make it a little easier to read.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. These eyes aren't getting any younger. .legacyrealistas.com.
So yeah, that reminder to really delve, look closely at that address bar.
So, fun fact: in our culture, we read from left to right. So, for a lot of people, the natural tendency is, I saw den, I saw APU, I saw edu, I'm out. The rest of it's gibberish. Well, unfortunately, in this case, that is not gibberish, and it is extremely important because what it tells you is this is not a legitimate site.
Yes.
It looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, but it's not a duck. So what happens when you put in your credentials onto this webpage? So there's a couple things that happen. On the back end of this is some form of spreadsheet or text file or even a database that is collecting everything that is entered into the APU NetID and password field. That is then harvested by a bad guy. Said bad guy then uses those credentials to log in as a legitimate person using real credentials that you just offered up.
Mm-hmm.
And then starts spamming or selectively sending to groups with either the same message or another targeted message to produce a specific response. So why do they do this? Well, the biggest threat in the world right now is called ransomware. Ransomware is where they encrypt your files and lock you out of them, and you have to pay a ransom to get it back. Now, we've talked about how to mitigate the risk there, but at the end of the day, that's really one of the major goals. Another major goal is harvesting, and that's harvesting credentials because you can turn around and sell them. Valid usernames and passwords that are known to be working are valuable.
Do we have a current price?
The last time I looked, it was still under $10. And it's probably lower than that because of all the recent breaches. And $10 was actually for a full ID, not just a username password pair. However, in bulk, they do produce some value. You might be able to buy pizza. I don't know if you've seen the price of pizza lately, but
It's sad when an identity costs less than a pizza. Actually, the identity costs less than a Big Mac. But anyway.
True.
So, anyway, moving right along.
Not that we're cynical about that at all. But you raise an interesting point, Holly. The reason that the cost of identities and the cost of credentials is so cheap now on the black market is the black market operates as a pure, free capitalist economy, and the rules of supply and demand weigh supreme. So, if you have more supply than you have demand, prices diminish. And that's the case we're seeing right now. There's a huge supply that far outpaces the demand. Thus, cheaper prices. So, if you're shopping for a stolen identity, now's the time to buy. Not that I advocate for that or condone it. Anyway, so now we've got an email that came from a very recognized source on campus. It had a pretty good subject line to grab attention. The body was also pretty good, even though there's some grammatical errors and there's some inconsistencies. You had the university ID and the net ID, kind of both represented there, which are, problematic. So we've got these red flags, right? So let's count them off. The subject line, the grammar there's a little weird. 2000, I don't know what the date is, what year that is. I'm guessing it's 21, but hey, who knows? Right. I'm guessing. Again, the grammar there is a little strange. For further assistance, please visit. We don't use tinyURL when we send emails out like this, ever. So that's suspect right there. Also, if you hover over those, a lot of times it'll show you the destination, where it's going. Not always with some of the newer URL shorteners, though. And then start using your net ID. Is there a period after that or no? I can't.
No, there's not.
No. Okay. Thank you for continuing to support the health and safety of the APU community. Again, that's a little odd for the email about your net ID. Sincerely, the IMT support desk. And again, the support desk is not the support desk anymore. So that was another red flag. All of these were subtle.
But what gave potentially validation was they even included the correct phone number for the support desk, as well as if you clicked on the link there, support.apu.edu, it took you to support.apu.edu.
Yep.
So that would be, this must be a good email. Yeah, potentially.
Exactly. So, so this email went out far and wide, and it hit over 1,000 inboxes. And what I am just incredibly impressed about with that is, and this all happened while I was on vacation. I didn't hear about it. I was on vacation the week this happened. It was it was so well handled by the team. They never even bothered to. I saw my email flood, but I didn't know why because, I was on vacation and nobody called me. So yay! And if the house is burning, they call me. So when I got back, I saw 264 copies of this email reported to the support center. That's impressive. Now, that's not counting probably 1,000 more that were just ignored or marked as spam or flat out deleted. Of those, there were only 10 total compromised accounts.
I wish I would have thought to have had fireworks to go off at this point. I cannot tell you how excited I was, to see the numbers, and only 10.
Yeah. And mind you, that's just those who reported it. That's not the total that received it. So out of the total that was reported, compared to the compromised, we were seeing about a 3.8% success rate. Now, not knowing what the actual number is, it's probably much lower than that as far as the success rate. But, we'll throw them a bone. So all of that to say, and, to our students and our staff and all of those who work to make APU a better place. Thank you.
Yes.
Your attention, your diligence, the work that you do to keep the university safe from threats like this, to keep yourselves safe and our students safe, it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Things like this, they come in the door every day. And, I am just so impressed and thankful for all of our employees and our students who just make this a non-event, who are watching and are saying, hey, that doesn't seem right. Or, hey, that's just dumb, and I'm going to delete it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to, thank our teams, in engineering, but especially the support desk.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go along with that. They have been fielding all of these tickets. They were responding to all of them individually, and letting people know and thanking them and letting them know what it was that they had submitted. And that's a lot of work. But the commitment from that team has always been that they will respond to every single report.
Yep.
And they've done it time and time and time again. So I think it's worth, sometimes we just need to say thank you.
Yep. Yeah, no, they did a great job handling this. Our engineering team worked with because Tiny URL is a legitimate company.
Yes, they are.
And serves, a really nice purpose. But they are very quick to respond when someone is using their service in this way in the attack. And they had the URL was killed, dead within minutes of it being reported by our engineering team.
Yeah. Yes, and that's a great point, Holly. We don't have any sponsors.
No.
So if we're going to name a name in a positive way, just know we're not getting paid for it. But yes, I do have to put kudos out there for Tiny URL.
Mm-hmm.
The engineering team has done a fantastic job of reaching out to them every time we've seen one of these. Also, I've reached out to them as well on a number of occasions, and I can echo what our engineering team is saying. They respond usually within minutes.
Yeah.
Somebody verifies it. They take these things very seriously, and they act very quickly. Another one out there that does the same thing that we've seen abused is called Bitly.
Mm-hmm.
bit.ly. And they're another one that does just a fantastic job of being responsive to reports of abuse like this. And they, again, also take it quite seriously.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was Tiny URL that their service got misused, and they addressed it very quickly and helped be part of the solution to the problem.
Yep. It was.
So, it's on one hand, it's kind of sad when you see an organization get good at spotting and handling these things appropriately, because that means there's a huge problem out there.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of it is there is a huge problem.
Huge problem out there. Yeah, it's a problem.
And it's not getting any better. As realistically, as long as there's email, there's going to be people misusing it for some kind of gain. Mm-hmm. We'll talk more about ransomware in August. We've got some pretty interesting stuff to go over then. There was a novel attack that we've not seen one of this scale before. I'll put it that way.
That's good. That's going to be good.
Yeah. But Holly, that's, again, kudos to the team. There it is. So if you see something suspicious, or as our campus safety department is so fond of saying, if you see something, say something.
Yes. Yeah. And feel free, you can use this email address if you question whether it's a legitimate email or not. And please report it. We do not mind. And if it is legitimate, we'll let you know that it's legitimate. Likewise, again, just as a reminder, if you have questions about cybersecurity, not necessarily reporting an incident, but if you have questions, you can reach out to us at iso@apu.edu. Sean and I both monitor that inbox. I will try to answer if I can, but I will always default to the expert when I cannot. And hopefully my hands went the right direction. They did not. So anyway, any final thoughts, Sean, as we wind this down?
Just an encouragement for everybody out there. Keep doing what you're doing. Be naturally suspicious, and look for those little nuances. Again, I am so impressed that so many saw this email and so many reported it, but so few fell victim.
Yeah.
So that's well done.
Well, very well done. Yes, thank you. And with that, again, if you have any questions, iso@apu.edu. We will be back the first Wednesday of August at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And with that, we will say goodbye. Bye-bye.